have advantage. This is wonderful! Double down. You gained the lead. What can stop you if you fight together? Nothing. Zone B captured. Double down. 3 opponents down.
Ladies and gents, my name is Xander, aka Deislayers, and in this video, we're going to discuss and review my top 5 unique hand cannons specifically for PvP. Now, I don't mean god rolls and I don't mean curator rolls, I mean unique rolls. And for those of you who haven't watched my last video define all these things, I'll link that in the top right hand corner of your screen this very second. But just as a teeny tiny bit of a little reminder, a unique roll is a weapon roll that has either a dual perk combination or potentially a single perk which can't be found on any other weapon in general, which can't be found on any other weapon class, meaning hand cannons, pulse rifles, fusion rifles, etc., or which can't be found on any other weapon archetype, meaning rate of fire among hand cannons or rate of fire among pulse rifles, etc., etc. If you want to know what I define a god roll or a curator roll as, once again refer to the other video. But now that we have a clear-cut definition of what a unique roll is, the only thing we have to do is to simply sit back, relax, and eviscerate the notification button, and let's jump right into the video. Arriving in the number 5 spot is a hand cannon that you and I have both come to know and love, which you get from Gambit, might I add, and it's called the Trust. Regardless of whether you like to play PvE or PvP, this Trust has certainly got your back, and that's something I can guarantee. But what you may not know about this thing is that this thing is extremely unique because it's the only hand cannon in the entire game that can roll with both Rampage and Firefly. As far as the other perks go, it really doesn't matter in the slightest, and the reason why this is so great is because as soon as you happen to get one kill, say in PvE, and that kill is of course a critical headshot, you're going to be able to proc Firefly, potentially get the next 2 kills with that perk alone, and thus instantly Rampage times 3 is procced just like that, bada bing bada boom. Unfortunately, RNG hasn't been kind enough to actually give this exact same roll to me, but what I have gotten instead is this roll right there, and it just so happens to have Rampage Outlaw, Extended Magazine, Small Bore, a Reload Masterwork, and a Backup Mag Mod. From a PvE standpoint, not having Firefly is certainly not going to be the best, but what I will say from a PvP standpoint is that Rampage times 1, times 2, and times 3 is fairly easy to still proc. And the glorious thing about this Trust is that it can still 3-tap with Rampage times 1 or with Rampage times 2, it's just going to be a little bit different as to how easy that actually is going to be. To really comprehend as to exactly what I mean, I've done all the computations and you guys can see that right there on screen. On the left, we have the weapon's base stats. In the center, we got Rampage times 1, and on the right hand side, we got Rampage times 2. And the most notable thing that I really want you guys to pay attention to here is that Rampage times 1 and Rampage times 2 can both 3-tap Guardians with all 3 critical headshots. But what really distinguishes these two things is the weapon's damage output at 63 and 69 respectively, which is then going to make a huge difference for Guardians who are running different resiliences at 189 for Rampage times 1 and 201 for Rampage times 2, aka 3 resilience and 10 resilience respectively. When you combine all these things together with the fact that this is a 180 rate of fire hand cannon, that then means to you that its recoil is going to be significantly reduced, and not just that, but so is its bloom factor. And together, that then means that this thing is going to absolutely eradicate, decimate, and obliterate every Guardian in its path. Appearing in the number 4 spot is a hand cannon that can only be attained from the Warden of Nothing Nightfall Strike is the wondrous and glorious Wardens Law. Unlike the Trust, which actually need 2 perks to make it somewhat unique, this Wardens Law only needs 1, and that's because it is the only hand cannon in the entire game that can roll with Feeding Frenzy. Not just this, but it can also potentially then have with that perk either Kill Clip or Rampage. And so no matter what you guys get, either Kill Clip or Rampage, when you couple that with Feeding Frenzy, its reload is going to be unbelievably fast, and thus that's then going to mean for you that you're then going to be able to continuously proc Rampage or get that much faster of a proc for Kill Clip. Once again, RNG was not kind to me in this respect, as I have yet to get a single Warden's Law that has Feeding Frenzy. But what I do happen to have instead is this roll right there, and this thing happens to have Outlaw Kill Clip, tactical mag, hitmark HCS, and a range masterwork. This rule somewhat follows the same principles as what having, say, Feeding Frenzy and Kill Clip does, because even though I don't happen to have Feeding Frenzy, I still have Outlaw, which is then going to give me that very fast reload speed just the same way that Feeding Frenzy does, but I have to get a critical headshot instead of just a basic kill to get that fast reload speed. It goes without saying that having Feeding Frenzy on this Wardens Law already makes it unique, but this Wardens Law also happens to fire 2 bullets instead of 1 bullet with every single trigger pull. And not just that, but its lethality factor is crazy high, either when you happen to have Kill Clip or Rampage, and you guys can see that right there on screen. On the left, we have the weapon's base PvP stats, but in the center is the weapon's Kill Clip stats, and on the right hand side is the weapon's Rampage ×1 stats. Upon first inspection, you'll notice that each one of them has the exact same optimal TTK stats for both Kill Clip and Rampage ×1 as 0.53 seconds. But the way in which each one of these two things is attained is very differently, because one requires 1 crit in one body while the other requires 2 crits. Likewise, their body shot damage and critical headshot damage is very drastic, and not just this, but the guardians in which they can actually down is also greatly different due to that damage difference, and thus that's then going to be 5 resilience for Kill Clip and 10 resilience for Rampage ×1. Despite these drastic differences, one thing is true, and that is that this thing right here is going to be an absolute monster in PvP, and it's going to hit at ranges that you might not think so just because the weapon's damage output is so incredibly great, and that then means to you a wider variety of engagements that this thing can then be used. If Trials was still around, this thing might be the Warden's gatekeeper, preventing every single guardian from getting that 7th win, but who knows, maybe Trials in some form will come back, and we'll find out very soon come Shadowkeep. Making itself known in the number 3 spot is a hand cannon that initially comes from the Reckoning, and it's called the Spare Rations. Coming very soon, and maybe even by the time that you're already watching this video, this Spare Rations drop rate increase is going to happen very quickly. And so to you, I would recommend that you highly get this thing looking for one in particular perk, and that perk is what makes it so incredibly unique, which just so happens to be multi-kill clip. Pairing this perk with something else, it would definitely be Rapid Hit, because those two things have some excellent perk synergy. But the reason why this thing is so unique is because there is not a single other hand cannon in the entire game that can roll with multi-kill clip. In terms of lethality, this perk is going to be astronomically high and skyrocketing through the roof, and we'll get back to this in just a couple of seconds. But before I do so, there's actually a second unique role that this thing has, which is going to actually make it have even more range than the Ace of Spades, and that one perk combination is with Rangefinder, Ricochet Rounds, Full Bore, a Range Masterwork, and then being very picky to get that fast reload speed and increased stability is Rapid Hit. When you can have a weapon that's legendary and can have even more range than an exotic weapon, that certainly is going to make it a unique role, and clearly that's what that particular role does. But going back to what multi-kill clip can do, in terms of its lethality, it is excellent and spectacular and gorgeous in so many ways, and you guys can see that from those computations right there on screen. With the weapon's base PvP stats on the left and multi-kill clip ×1 in the center, you're going to see that their optimal TTKs are the exact same thing as 0.8 seconds. But where things get really interesting is when you happen to have multi-kill clip ×2, as that's then going to allow the Spare Rations to 2-tab Guardians with an optimal TTK at 0.4 seconds. Yes, my friends, I just said 0.4 seconds, and that right there is astounding and truly mind-boggling, so much to the point that this is almost one of the fastest, if not the actually fastest, TTK in the entire game. Now when you happen to get body shots, that's then going to allow the weapon to become that much more forgiving. And so to you I say, definitely get your hands on this thing and practice with it, because you're going to need that practice since its shot rhythm is a little bit faster than what you might expect, and the weapon's bloom is quite drastic as well. But even so, get the hang of those two things, and you're going to land crit after crit after crit, down 2 Guardians, and then get that oh so satisfying 2-tap, making Guardians a little bit salty. Inserting itself in the number 2 spot is a hand cannon that comes from the Vanguard, and it's called the Service Revolver. Now I know what a lot of you Guardians are probably thinking, and you might be asking yourself, okay, well, what makes this thing so different from, say, the Trust? The answer to that question is actually one in particular perk, and it can't be found on any other 180 rate of fire hand cannon, and that is kill clip. Personally, I don't really think that that one perk makes it quote-unquote unique, even though by definition it actually is. What I think really puts the icing on the cake is the fact that this thing can not only roll with high caliber rounds, giving the weapon a tremendous amount of flinch, and with the weapon's rate of fire, that's only going to be a catalyst on top of it, but when you also couple these two perks with rapid hit, oh my gosh, the synergy is just spectacular and marvelous because you're going to have a weapon that has high lethality, has high flinch factors, has high stability, and has high overall reload speed, giving this thing an A+++ to the mode and back. The game footage that you guys have been seeing with this service revolver thus far has been with this exact same perk combination that I've just shown you. And just to clarify this even more so, you can tell from right there that it's got kill clip, rapid hits, high caliber rounds, sure shot HCS, a range masterwork, and a backup mag mod. In this particular case, RNG was certainly shined upon me, as this thing is literally the definition of I can't ask for anything better. And so to you, my friends, I also want to say that what makes this thing so different from something like, say, the Trust is that it can 3-tap much more effectively than the Trust. And if I'm being honest, I might even go as far as to say, as this thing feels very similar to what the Not Forgotten did and the Luna's Howl did way back when, before they actually got nerfed. To see as to precisely what I mean by this, I want you guys to see the weapon's PvP stats. And so right there we can see that on the left we happen to have the weapon's base PvP stats, and on the right hand side we happen to have kill clip. I know that your eyes are being drawn to one line right there, and that is that with the service revolver and kill clip, the weapon's optimal TTK is at 0.67 seconds. And yes, my friends, that is the exact same time as what the Not Forgotten and what the Luna's Howl had way back before they were nerfed. And so to you, this is why I believe that this thing is very similar to what those two things were before the nerf, and not just that, but it can do all this with the flinch factors that I mentioned from earlier, and also do it with the stability factors and having that fast reload speed via rapid hit and high caliber rounds. And hearing all the information, I think it's safe to say that this thing right here is the mini version of those two bad boys, so if you want to, grind some Vanguard strikes and pop those boons, because those tokens are then going to give you a lot more options to then get this thing, and be sure to look for exactly this, high caliber rounds, kill clip, and rapid hit, as that's then going to give you a killing machine that's going to make you seem unstoppable, just like a boxing champion. Jab jab right hook, knockout baby. Last but certainly not least is our number one hand cannon spot, and that is reserved for the one and only beautiful black armory weapon known as the Kill on the Orchid. By doing the Berguzia Forge with either a gold weapon frame or a silver weapon frame, you then have a very good chance to get this Kill on the Orchid. And the reason why you want it is because of two damage buffing perks, which simply cannot be found on any other hand cannon in the entire game, and that is Rampage and Kill Clip. As far as the weapon's other perks go, you might want to try and get Drop Mag in that second column, because if that's the case, then you're going to be able to proc Rampage and Kill Clip that much more effectively and get its awesome and incredible lethal 2-tapping potential. Now before we get into that, which I'll do so in just a couple of seconds, I just want to show you guys my roll that I happen to get by doing a ton of silver weapon frames, and that is right there with Rampage and Kill Clip, Drop Mag, Coruscant Rifling, a Reload Masterwork, and a Rampage spec mod. Just as a little bit of an FYI, this is actually the exact same thing as what the Curator roll is, and the only difference being that this one has a Reload Masterwork, whereas the Curator one has a +10 range Masterwork. Other than that, they're identical, and no matter which kind of roll that you guys happen to get, as long as you happen to have Kill Clip and Rampage, this thing can definitely 2-tap. And unlike that, the spare rations, which can do so after 2 kills, this one can do so after 1 kill. And to see all this, I wanted to put that information right there on screen. I got a feeling that right now, your eyes are like gazer beams, and they're looking at one thing and one thing alone, which is when the Kill on the Orchid happens to have Kill Clip and Rampage ×1 or Rampage ×2 procced, this thing's then going to have an optimal TTK at 0.43 seconds. Yes, my friends, I just said 0.43 seconds. And not only this, but it can do so with a Guardian even if they happen to have 10 resilience, aka 201 points of health. Just to kind of put that into perspective for you, this is only 0.03 seconds slower than that of the spare rations and its 2-tapping potential, but remember that requires 2 kills and this only requires 1, and not just this, you're never ever going to notice that minute of a minuscule reduction in time overall. And so to your human processing speed, just the same way that mine is, we're never going to notice this difference, period. If you were to ask me, I love this hand cannon because not only can you grind for it over and over again as much as your heart contents, but this thing is guaranteed to do well, not just in PvE, but PvP as well. And so taking into account all these things, I know that this thing is going to punch so many holes in enemy guardians that's going to make them look like some Swiss cheese. As an honorable mention, I've got to include one thing that comes from the menagerie, and it's known as the Osringer, which just so happens to be the game footage that you guys are seeing right now, and also what you saw in the introduction, because this thing is the only hand cannon in the entire game that can roll with Eye of the Storm. When you combine that particular perk with something that has some great overall effective range, potentially at 86 range, that right there definitely makes it unique. And so taking into account all these things, I'm very intrigued to hear all your guys' thoughts about this stuff down in the comment section below. Do you agree with my assessments? Do you not? Do you think I should have arranged these in a different order? Or do you think I should have left something else out and put something else in? No matter what you guys say, you always know that your opinions and thoughts are certainly going to be respected, and I can't wait to see exactly what you guys gotta say. Lastly, be sure to watch the newest, check the latest, and share, comment, like on social media because you are the greatest. That's pretty much all I've got for you guys right now, Deislayers. And so as always, GG TNT.